The Gauteng ANC's reconfigured leadership has hit the ground running with a number of meetings with structures for handover reports. Former NCOP chair and ex-Joburg mayor Amos Masondo is tasked with arresting the party's decline after the ANC's dismal showing in May's election. For more on plans to reclaim the province, let's speak to Gauteng Task Team Coordinator Hope Papo. A very good evening to you. Thanks very much for your time. So you are minding your business and then you get a call to say, what did the Secretary General of the ANC say?
When I say I'm minding my business, I was just doing organizational work quietly, the communications work of the ANC. And then he says, the National Working Committee on the mandate of the NEC has decided that you will be in the provincial task team and you have to do coordination work.
Did you ask why me?
In that situation, I just had to say they must outline the task, and we do it. He said, we have asked you before, and now we ask you again. Because I was with Braambi in Northwest, preparing for elections of 2019, where I was a deputy coordinator, he was a deputy convener. We spent 6 months there working with in the PTT there, preparing for the 2019 elections.
So what does a coordinator do exactly?
It's the job which, in an elected position, is the job of a secretary, with all the powers of a secretary. PTT also has got delegated powers of a PC.
So effectively, you are running the ANC in Gauteng?
Together, yes, with Nomantunko Moral Hoko, who's the deputy coordinator.
Now, what exactly do you go around telling? Now, you have to meet with structures. You've got to go and explain what's going on, why the decisions that were taken have actually been taken. So when you arrive in a meeting, what do you tell them?
You know, what is fortunate is that the PTT is not a completely new structure replacing the previous PEC. PEC members who were in the former PEC members have been given responsibility to work with other members. So it's like a reinforcement, because people thought it was going to replace. So they have got responsibility working with other people.
But you have effectively replaced TK Ngiza?
Yes, although now he's the convener of a subcommittee. What we tell members is that our conference in 2022 took a decision that we must unite, we must rebuild, we must renew, we must also strengthen the organization. It means both structurally and politically. Individual members of the organization have to themselves change all of us, we need to change our behavior, which may harm the ANC, harm our province and the country.
But what do you say happened? In other words, you walk into a room full of people. You say, what? What happened? How did you get here?
Our organization was weakened over time because we were not paying attention to some of the basic things about an organization. For example, we were supposed to build sub-branches in our own localities at the VD, voting district level. We did not do that. We were supposed to implement induction and political education. We did it, but not at the massive scale which we were supposed to have done it. We should have better monitored performance of local government and provincial government, and also the programs of national government in our province. We were not effective in doing that. So it's not only organizational. Part of our responsibility is not to interfere in government, but closely monitor the implementation of commitments which were made in the manifesto. So the difference is that you don't wheel and deal in terms of government. At some point, obviously, you have to do a midterm assessment of government. Government is only, 7 months, the Gauteng provincial government of provincial unity. So our responsibility, as I'm saying, there are certain things which did not do, which in the report, which the National Working Committee presented to the NEC, identified them. Organizational weaknesses, government weaknesses, which need to be attended together.
But is Gauteng alone in this?
I guess because Gauteng and KZN are very, very key in terms of the national economy. I remember the 3 provinces which contribute almost 50% plus is Gauteng, KZN, and Western Cape. So in the political architecture of the African National Congress, Gauteng is very important. We contribute over 30% of GDP. We're highly populated in terms of statistics. We're the biggest populated. So Transvaal in the past, now Gauteng, has always been taken very, very seriously. Remember, in Gauteng, we have always been performing well and contributing immensely to the national vote of the African National Congress and our own vote. In 1999, we got 67%. In 2004, we got 70%. And then we were in the 60s, and then we went into the 50s. Crossing into the lower 50s, the organization had to react because you can't, because the impact of the performance of Gauteng. So we need to run our organization better. We need to run our municipalities better. We need to run the provincial government better. And the commitment has been made by the Premier.
But then you were forewarned that you're going to get to the place, not only Gauteng, but the ANC, I mean, overall, that you were going to get to this point. But you didn't act. Well, you didn't strengthen your structures. You didn't do what you're saying now you're about to do. Why? Why did
it was there on the agenda, but there was no, as you say, in a proper focus on this. And the NEC has accepted that it was an error not to actually strengthen organization, put more emphasis on monitoring of governance. So they've taken a number of people with experience both in government and executive, at an executive level in the organization leadership. And I guess our focus now is to work with all our members in the province and our supporters to make ANC a better instrument in the hands of the South African people. And I think there is excitement, there is a determination. There are very, very few people who are saying we will benefit if the ANC is strong. It can able to monitor government well, and it can ensure that the public servants who are at municipal level and at provincial level focus on their job. There's no interference by people who claim connections in their work. And those public servants who don't do their work, disciplinary action is taken, as it has already been started to be taken in Gauteng. We want to encourage more and more of those actions to be taken, because the biggest problem happens in government. Because the ANC, it's outside. So the ANC must ensure that its deployees take action against public servants who do wrong things, because the bulk of the problems happen in the public service.
But why didn't the national leadership of the ANC also take responsibility for what has happened in Gauteng and in KZN as well? Because they're the ones leading the organization overall.
Well, I will not be able to respond on their behalf, but I think also ourselves, when we were elected at various levels of the organization, I would say the previous leadership tried, but it was not good enough, obviously, for the national leadership to take us to 35%, because some people were talking about less than 30% before the elections. So I think all of us, a branch leadership must take responsibility for the area of election they are. Yes, but I can't answer for them, but I'm just saying that collectively we have taken the responsibility. That's why it was not removing these people and replacing them with the other. The reality is that it's a combination of they've added capacity to the previous PEC. They've given them the responsibility because there's much more capacity in terms of experience, in terms of the numbers to do the work in the various regions of our province.
It is a bit upset, though, that, I mean, the national leadership wouldn't look at themselves, you know, as well, and hold certain people or individuals within the provinces as being the weak link. But how do you do that without examining how you are running the organization overall, the biggest, most important decision-making body between conferences?
There would have been decisions which were taken, and if provinces don't implement those decisions according to agreements at the national level, I cannot answer, but they have taken stock, their role, but there would have been decisions around organization renewal and which provinces, regions, and branches were supposed to implement.
But there are provinces that are in the same boat that have not implemented conference resolutions. But fortunately for them, you know, they have not suffered the kinds of losses that we saw in Gauteng and in KwaZulu-Natal?
I think it's a beginning. Hopefully, everybody now knows that we have to take responsibility for the areas where we are elected. Maybe we are the first guinea pigs, KZN and Gauteng, the biggest provinces in terms of population. And other provinces will take cue that when we are elected in branches, in regions, in provinces, we have to all take responsibility for implementing organizational decisions without fear or favor.
How have you been received by those structures you've already engaged with?
Well, they said welcome back as their former secretary. Ambi has been our leader in our province for years, in the NEC for 10 years. And we met with the officials of the regions yesterday, and we were dealing with organizational and governance issues. Sticky points, we have advised on how to deal with some of the difficult areas, water, energy, increasing capacity of the municipalities in the metros, particularly on energy and water security, monitoring very, very doggedly work of all the public servants, because public servants are not employed necessarily because they belong to a certain political party. Those are people in political offices. Public servants in the municipalities, in the provincial government, we told our own employees that they must actually look at those. For example, in the province, there are 13 key areas. So we're going to have to look at that through our various PTT subcommittees, which will also add technical and administrative capacity to them, because there are ANC members who are experts in various areas of their work. So we have given our subcommittees the permission to identify those ANC members who may not be REC members, BEC members, but they're just ordinary ANC members who have got expertise to help us in running those PTT subcommittees more efficiently, so that we do oversight work over those who are in government in a better way. Because if you've got even people who are not in government doing an assessment using scientific tools, it will be even easier for us in the PTT to actually manage that. So we have agreed that one of the first things we need to do, use March, is to do an induction of the PTT immediately, do the foundation course, and then immediately look at a plan of action. So we have a March set up the subcommittees administratively and have capacity in those PTT subcommittees. So there's no group of people outside who are feeling they don't have a responsibility. Even previous PEC members were in this, all of us. The strengthening of the ANC, it's a very, very big issue for the people of Gauteng. If ANC operates effectively, those of us who are in government focus on our work to ensure that public servants do their work effectively, the people of Gauteng will actually respond. So the issue is not about only having a strong organization. It's also about relationships with the private sector, dealing with basic issues. If we're going to have investment in a province, you must deal with basic infrastructure, all those things which are known.
Do people also raise the sort of concerns that they raise in WhatsApp groups and on social media around contestation? You know, that some of these decisions have nothing to do with what they are being said to be about, but certain people are positioning themselves ahead of elective conferences, that others want to be presidents, and so they're busy purging people that they think may stand in their way. What I'm asking is, are those issues not being raised?
No, when we met with the regional, the fortunate part is that the whole PEC still is in the PTT. It's not some, it's all of them. They've got responsibility to rebuild the organization, to unite it. And the tone of our working committee meeting is that. And the former PEC members who are now in the PTT have endorsed that at least they have now an increased capacity to do the work in the various regions, where you have about 10 PEC members deployed to a region to work. So they can split themselves into zones and sub-regions. That issue will not solve the problem of an ANC which has to be strong.
But does it get raised?
Well, people raise it on social media. ANC is an organization which allows people to express opinions, but in informal meetings of the organization has not been raised.
So you're confident that the process you've now undertaken with your specific role will turn the fortunes of the party in Gauteng?
We think so, because we're not here on avenging, because we're working with the previous PEC to deal with the weaknesses. That's why we first asked for a handover report, which they had given to the National Executive Committee. We are also going to get a report from the organization, which they used to take the decision, so that we also look at those areas when we are shaping up our plan of action. So we're working, our job is to unite. So you cannot arrive and behave as if you are the bull in a china shop. We're not at that approach. The approach is to say, we all as ANC members need to change our behavior. Because if we don't change our behavior, the ANC has instruments to discipline us. And when you are disciplined, it's not a badge. You are violating the code of conduct of the ANC. Even when the NEC has taken a decision, you decide to write on social media, dissent, when you are a member. A supporter can do that, can write anything. But there are certain obligations members of the ANC have. And some of those who write know that what they are doing is actually in violation of the code of conduct and behavior of the ANC. So, but we won't start by saying, now you will be punished. We'll just set the ground rules that we are rebuilding the organization. We must respect its constitution, respect its code of conduct, so that a functioning ANC will create an environment in the state and in government to function effectively.
But that does not mean that there were no people with noses out of joint, from those who have been moved from certain positions that were elected.
By the way, I had a meeting with TK last week Friday. We planned for this handover report, but he had to leave to Cape Town because his granny was ill. And then I spoke to him again on Friday to finalize the preparations for the handover report. So the report, so he's the one who's no longer the coordinator. The rest were not full-time, remember? But he's now going to head a subcommittee of monitoring and evaluation, which will strengthen in terms of our work, obviously coordinated from. So my approach was not now, he was a secretary. Remember, I was secretary when he was the regional treasurer, and they reported through us, through the national, to the organization. So my attitude is that we are going to work with all the members of the ANC who are interested in rebuilding the organization. So the beef, he explained to me things I must be on the lookout for, which may create problems with unity in the organization. And it was a one-on-one, nobody, it was the two of us when we were talking. That is not this Friday. The other Friday when they said they were going to, so I expect all the members, the 69 members of the PTT, once we have a program of rebuilding the organization, we have put it in place, and there are certain milestones. For example, the renewal of our members in the province, the key area of our work. The recruitment of new members is another. The foundation cost for all our members in the province, so that we don't have a problem with basics. And then, because the foundation cost also explains to people how you relate to people who are in government. You don't micromanage them, you monitor them to ensure implementation of programs. So that itself in the PTT being happening, then we roll it out too. And then based on that, we also have foundation costs for all the members in the branches, so that we don't go to meetings to elect new branch leadership without people understanding some of the basics and the foundations. And then we can take it further. So conferences, going to conferences must be dictated by a substantial number of your members who have renewed their membership. They've gone through the foundation course. They understand how they should relate to people who are elected into government, because they also have it's not a competitive, it's a complementary role for people there. So I agree with you that there will be. ANC is one of the organizations which also discusses its strengths and weaknesses in public. There are very few political parties in South Africa which do that. That is why people are always concerned about weaknesses of the ANC and how ANC should actually revamp itself.
Mr. Hope Papo, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Vuyo, and everything of the best. We'll come back to actually give you feedback on how it is going. But we will actually rise in this province.
newly appointed coordinator of the ANC, effectively the provincial secretary of the ANC